Good morning. I'm so grateful that you're with us. And this is our Science of Mind class. I'm Dr. Petra. Today we're in the process of talking about physical perfection, but we are going to talk about something very interesting, and that is the use of will and willpower, and what that has to do with personal healing. I'm going to just stop here for a minute and check in with our camera guy. Do you have sound, Richard? Do I need to? Okay, great. All right, so I really want to highlight this. This is on page 192 and 193 in our chapter on physical perfection. And we talked about last week, it's the legitimate use. It's the legitimate to use all methods which will help us. So we're talking exclusively about the spiritual method of healing, which works in conjunction with the psychological, emotional, mental, and physical kinds of healing processes that we might be involved in. So this is the second full paragraph on page 192, and this is a really important idea. Too much cannot be said against the belief that willpower is creative. The will is directive. It is not creative. Will is the conscious directive power of the intellect, and as such has a very important place in the creative order, but in no case is to be used as though it could force things to happen. Okay, so this is true in physical healing, and it's true any time that we're engaged in spiritual work in the manifestation process, in healing, changing, or growing something. It's not about concentrating on it. It's not about willing ourselves well. It's not about the idea that if I just intensely focus on it, it'll go away. It's not our power that we're using. So, we do a lot of shorthand in metaphysics. We say change your thinking, change your life. Well, the truth is it's really change your belief, change your life. We say things like I create my own reality, which is, well, it's not really true. I co-create my own reality. The universal law is the creative power. The universal laws are the powers of creation. Our job is directive. Our job is directive. And so the point is not that we're the power making things happen. Like, let's say we have a diagnosis, or we have an illness, or we have some kind of reoccurring chronic thing. And we feel like if we can just will it away. I'm just going to be strong. I'm just going to make it go away. I'm just going to push through. I'm just going to whatever it is. Or sometimes I think people, they think if they mentally screw up their face and really focus on it, it's going to disappear. But that's exhausting on the one hand. And on the other hand, that isn't how it works. Our will is directive. What does that mean? That means that our will is the muscle that we use to focus and stay focused on the spiritual truth and the end result. It is our will that is the muscle that says, no, I'm not going to be afraid. I am going to focus on the spiritual truth that the power and perfection of life is moving as me. No, I am not going to believe this diagnosis. I am going to know that it's not anything that comes out of the universal power and presence. Therefore, it cannot stay here in my body. Do you see? The will is the directive power. And so I liken it, I liken it to the use of a flashlight that we're walking around, and if you put the flashlight really wide, you get a nice wide light, and you see everything, right? Which means you also see the things that maybe you don't want to focus on. You see everything, and it's great if you want to just walk into the room. But if you want to really focus in on something, we narrow that beam, and we narrow that beam, and we narrow that beam until we're hyper-focused. Think of a spotlight on a stage. If you've gone to a concert or a play or an opera or whatever, and when that spotlight focuses on the individual singer or the individual instrument, it's as if the rest of the stage fades from our consciousness, right? And it's still there, but it fades from our consciousness. We're not paying any attention to it because we're hyper-focused on what that light has caused us to pay attention to. Our will is exactly that mental muscle that causes us to pay attention to something. And then the question is, right, are we disciplined? Have we harnessed the muscle of our will to focus on what we want to focus on? As opposed to, oh my God, there's that piece of information, and there's that to be afraid of, and there's that to be thought about, and no, my mother said that, and the doctor said that, and the people said that, and I have these feet, right? And then we tend to broaden it out, and we take all of that into consideration. And if we take all of that into consideration, right, all that other information is part of what the creative law is using to continue to manifest the experience in our bodies and the experience in our life. So too much cannot be said against the belief that willpower is creative. Now, the last sentence in that paragraph is, any idea of using the will to influence people is a mistake. Like we're going to send energy to them. We're going to focus so hard on them that they're going to feel our intention and be healed. No, it doesn't work that way either, right? He goes on to say, if we agree that we can influence others by willpower, then we are also admitting that someone else has a greater power of will. Someone else with a greater power of will can influence us. Well, they can if we let them, but that is not the creative power. There is no law of nature that works only one way, since all natural laws are impersonal, right? So if we can affect others by willpower, they can affect us. The temporary effects of willpower continue only so long as the will forces them to. Right? This is why we talk about, yes, we can manifest and demonstrate individual things, but ultimately what we're doing is we're creating a consciousness of the expectation of wholeness or abundance or joy or peace, because our willpower, just focusing on it and concentrating on it and being all engaged with it from that point of view, we can affect it, but there's nothing universal holding it in place. Do you see the difference? Let's take an example of, what shall be a good example? Think of a universal law, the law of gravity, right? The law of gravity works. If I drop a ball, it's going to fall to the ground. My will, my work, if I'm doing exercise, is to hold that ball above the ground, right? And as long as I am physically holding that ball and intending to hold it up, I'm going to be able to do that. But if that's a 25 or 30 or 50 pound weight, and I keep holding it, and I focus all my attention on the fact that I'm the one who has to hold it, what happens? Eventually my arm gets tired. This is exactly what happens. When we use our willpower, our power, when we think our power is enough, temporary effects of willpower continue only so long as the will forces them to. They have no real life within themselves and must disintegrate as soon as the unnatural force is withdrawn. Do you see? Because then we're forcing it. We're not using the natural law of gravity. The natural laws that are designed for life to flow and to work and to things to grow and things to unfold, and the natural laws of health and abundance, right? We want to allow them to do the hard work. Does that make sense? See, they're natural laws. They know how to do it. They're intelligent. They're all-knowing. They're all-powerful. I mean, holy mackerel. The natural laws, the universal laws created the universe, like quasars and black holes and galaxies and planets and everything that we see. I mean, that's like mind-boggling, the amount of intelligence and power. And it's doing that all the time. Why not just use that? Why not just use that and say, I want to aim that to this, right? Which is precisely what we do when we dig up the ground and we say, I'm going to have a garden here. I'm using all the natural laws of the soil and the sun and the water and the seeds. I'm using all of those natural laws to grow a garden where I decide, right? That's my directive will. I want the garden here. I want flowers there. I want a tree there. Do you see? That's my will, directing what I want the outcome to be. But everything else, I'm actually using the laws of nature and I'm expecting them to work. I actually expect the tree to grow and the flowers to bloom and the garden to be what I expect it to be. Clearly, I have to engage, right? Which is why we do our spiritual practices. We keep charge of our mind. We keep charge of our words. There's all kinds of ways. We have spiritual tools and techniques that help us engage in supporting the natural processes, right? And so when we're using universal laws of healing for our body, it's exactly and precisely the same. We're saying, I want this universal law of health and wholeness to reveal itself in this area of my life, in this particular area of my life. And we expect it to do so because we are using the creative power, the universal laws. Moreover, this use of willpower contradicts the main foundation upon which all true mental science is built, that we use a creative power which does not need to be urged or forced into action. Man, okay, let me say that again. The use of willpower contradicts the main foundation upon which all true mental science is built, that we use a creative power which does not need to be urged or forced into action. Excuse me, law of gravity, could you work now? No, really, I need you to hold me to the ground. Excuse me, law of the soil, could you make my garden grow? Excuse me, law of whatever it is that causes chlorophyll to take sun and make energy. Could you work now? I'm going to make you work. I need you to work. I'm going to pray for you to work. I'm going to hope you work. I'm going to whatever. Does not need to be urged or forced into action. It is its nature to act. And because we are as we are, it is its nature to act creatively upon the images of thought that we impress upon it. We use our will to see ourselves whole, perfect, and complete, to see the end result. That's the image that we impress upon it. We do not create energy, we distribute it. And so we are the focusing agent. That is the use of our will, but it's not our power that is creating anything. So quite frankly, doing spiritual work should never tire us. We should never get tired of focusing on our good. We should never get tired of focusing on our well-being. We should never get tired of focusing on the healing of anything in our bodies, because we're not creating the outcome. We're not the power behind it. We are simply directing the will. Now, we can get tired of paying attention to what we're paying attention to. We can get tired of disciplining our mental muscle and saying, no, I'm not going to be afraid. I'm going to think about this. No, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to think about this. No, I don't believe it's going to be that bad. I'm going to know that it works out because I'm using the law. And then we tell ourselves why, because I'm using the laws. I'm giving a new image. And so the only thing is the constant, consistent use of the will to pay attention and focus on the end result we choose, not the end result we fear. That's the only work that we have to do. And that is our work. And it may be work, but it's not the creative power itself. The law, the universal laws of creation, they are designed to work for us. They don't need to be urged or forced to work. Neither do they need to be begged or pleaded with. They don't need to be bargained with. They don't need to be coaxed into it. They're always working. The universal gravity is always working. Doesn't matter where we are or what we're doing. Gravity is always working. And we utilize that in all the ways in which we do without even thinking about it. All right, so this is an incredibly important conversation, whether we're talking about physical healing or, quite frankly, any other spiritual work we're doing to manifest or demonstrate anything. Whether it's a specific end result or whether it's just a more peaceful life, a more grounded, spiritually whole life, even just the doing something with more experience of the practice of the presence. These particular chapters are really about manifesting in the physical realm, specifically around healing. But we extrapolate that this way to think about it works in every area of our life. So I'm going to stop there, and I want you to really think about this idea, the difference between will and willpower. And you might want to think about where in your life do you have a tendency to want to power through, muscle through, push through, force things to happen by your deep spiritual intention. And where are you willing to do the disciplined work? Because sometimes we even say, well, I'm just going to let spirit guide. Well, yeah, guide where? Guide to what end? Have we mentally disciplined ourselves to the outcome? So this is the thing I want us to explore this morning. This use of will and willpower. Let's just start it there. I have a few more questions. We could talk about what's easy about it, what's difficult about it. Where have you maybe found yourself caught with it? So just things to think about. And so, Ryan, I'm going to turn over to you and see if you can help people come in and chat or talk, see what we have going on out there.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Petra. And I just want to let everybody know, if you're watching us live here on the Zoom link, you can go ahead and hit the raise your hand icon, and I can call you into the room. And then also, if you have a question or a comment, feel free to put it in the chat box, and I can read that out loud. As well as if you're watching us on Facebook Live, feel free to put that comment or question inside of the chat, and I can bring that into the room. So I do see one hand already. So Connie, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Hi, Connie. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, Petra and everybody. Ooh, again, the topic is so amazingly relevant. Recently, in the last month or so, I had the occurrence of osteoporosis and, unfortunately, excruciating pain associated with it.
So sorry.
I started doing some things. The pain is gone now, and I just want to get it, kind of understand it and get it straight. I think that was my will to take the medicine, do the exercise, all the things that I did, but then I'm also treating.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah.
So you're also treating, say it again.
I'm also treating for a normal, healthy spine.
Yes, absolutely. Right? And so you're actually using your will in both ways. One, to stay focused on the physical things that you're required to do. And two, to say, I'm going to do spiritual work around this as well. And that's what our will does, is it chooses and directs. I'm going to do these things, and I'm going to do my spiritual work. And so when you do your spiritual treatment, Connie, Are you focusing on the end result of your healthy spine and knowing that knowing that the universe is creating that for you? How are you doing that? This is not a rhetorical question.
You need to unmute yourself.
Can you give us an example of how you are imagining it in your spiritual mind treatment?
Yeah. My spine is completely whole and wholly healthy and normal and excellent health.
Yeah, beautiful, right? That's the end result. But you're not saying, oh, and I have to do this, and the doctor has to do that, and you're not having to try to manipulate anything or fix anything, and I don't hear you saying anything like, and I hope that I'm doing enough exercises to make this happen, right? That's a beautiful end result statement. And we might add to that statement, and I know that the universal law is already bringing this about, because it's the universal law that's taking that image and making it so. And we want to really, really plant in our own consciousness our deep trust in that universal law. It's not just because we're imagining the perfect healthy spine. It's because something is working on that image, taking that image, and now making that so. Do you see? That's the difference also between just the sort of old-fashioned idea of positive thinking. If I think about my spine being healthy, I'll magically make it be healthy. There's no magic in it. I'm using a universal law that says that which we direct with our will, that end result, that image that we hold, is going to be what the universal laws use to create. Thank you so much for sharing that, Connie. That's really great. All right, Ryan, I'm going to check in and see what other comments or questions we might have before we move on.
So I'm just scanning just the different comments. Everybody's having a beautiful morning. Obviously, they're saying hi and hello from all over the place.
Yay, hi and
Have
hello.
anything right now.
Okay. So I feel like I'm just reading you these two pages, but oh man, this stuff is so great. Okay, but I do see now that you have a hand up.
Yeah, Dennis, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Hi, Dennis.
Good morning.
So can I just say I love hearing your voices, even though I can't see your faces. So thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Connie.
I love this subject. This ties in beautifully to your current talks, actually. Will versus willpower. Okay,
Yeah.
Here's my story.
Okay.
Before Science of Mind, I lived my entire life in the first two stages of consciousness, totally. And more in the first stage and the second stage. Most everything I did had a level of fear to it.
Yeah.
Because if it's to be, it's up to me. And poor little scared me, how am I going to do? But I did everything scared.
Mm-hmm.
So then when I found Science of Mind and started doing mind treatments, I mentioned this a few weeks ago. Well, first thing I discovered was I really had to focus on the unification. I guess I just didn't believe I was worthy
Yes.
of that.
Yes.
Once I caught that, the peace just flowed.
Yeah.
Because once I really developed that belief, truly believe it, that allowed me to actually properly move across, as you call it, the portal of surrender.
Yes.
But I had to have that first.
Yes.
And so,
Beautiful.
okay, so I no longer have to will things to happen. And I mean, I still smile, but no, the universe is here to support me.
Yes.
And so that's just my 2 cents.
I love it. Thank you so much, Dennis. And yes, in the Sunday celebration, we are going to talk about the third stage of consciousness, and we are going to talk about surrender. And what are we surrendering? One of the things we're surrendering is our belief that I'm making it happen. And we're surrendering to the universal law that is actually the one doing the power. And Ernest Holmes in The Science of Mind, he says we have to become obedient to the law. And I remember the first time I read that, I was like, I'm not prepared to be obedient to anything or anybody. I'm my own person. Spirit is within me. I can do any damn thing I want. I can create any life I want. What do you mean, be obedient to the law? Ooh, man, made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. And it was quite a while before I realized that obedient to the law means I have to understand how the process works. I have to understand the universal law, and I have to work with it the way that it works, which means my job is to focus on the end result and to stay committed consistently on the end result. Can't look at that and then look at fear and then look at that and then look at what if it doesn't happen and then look at that and then look at what how it looks not at the end result, and right, because I'm just confusing this law that's trying to take something and keep and create. And so to be obedient to the law is to surrender my willpower that I'm going to make it happen, and it's to surrender my my excuses, my stories, my rationale for, well, a part of me thinks that the universe is going to support me, but another part of me doesn't. Another part of me is scared, and I don't know how it's going to happen. That's the other thing I have to surrender, is my belief that I need to know how it's going to happen. And this idea that we're going to know all the steps of the way. We're going to know that I'm going to do this thing and then this thing and then this thing, and by God, that means I'm going to get to the end result. No. All of that piece between here and the end result, that is the job of the universe. That is the law of cause and effect. This side is my image of that side. Its job is to get me from here to there. Why? Because that's what it does. That's what it does. That's its job. That's, I don't know how else to say that. It's a principle. That's how principles work. That's how this principle works. When there is a cause, a corresponding effect must appear. It's not because I hope it or wish it or want it or even desire it. It's because it's a law that we are using. This is the first full paragraph on the top of page 193. The energy of mind, like other natural energies, already exist. We merely use it. And it is within our province to use it in any way we may desire. We have it within our power to cause it to take varying forms for us. No particular one is permanent. The imagination is creative. The will is directive. Okay, there's a lot to unpack in that paragraph. Stop there for a minute. Let's talk about, we use this law, and it is within our province to use it in any way we may desire. We have it within our power to cause it to take varying forms for us. No particular one is permanent. So, no particular form is permanent. So, the job that we manifested isn't permanent. It can change. It can go away, or we can decide to change our mind. Or the illness that we're having also isn't permanent. We can do the work, and no particular manifestation, no particular form is permanent, because that's the nature of physicality. So that's one piece of that statement. But the more important piece of that statement is, it is within our providence to use it in any way we may desire. So this understanding and surrendering or being obedient to the law does not mean that we accept or resign ourselves. Well, I must be having this experience so I can learn a lesson. This is not what metaphysics teaches, and it's not what the science of mind teaches. The lesson we're learning is that we have not yet used our spiritual tools to build a new outcome for the law to use in a way that is bringing something new about. There's still some kind of confusion, false belief, false idea, or quite frankly, acceptance of just the thought atmosphere of humanity. about how difficult life is and that people, get illnesses and die of them all the time. And so I'm so surprised at how many metaphysicians believe that the experience that they're having is somehow caused by spirit. Well, spirit must have been the intention. No, it's simply the outpicturing of whatever we've planted into the law in the previous time period, whether consciously or unconsciously. We don't consciously choose to be ill. We don't consciously choose to have terrible lives and terrible experiences. But something back there, and if nothing more than that, we accept that life is hard. How many times do we hear ourselves say that? I don't remember whether it was the philosopher Locke or Hume, in the utilitarian age of philosophy, said life is nasty, brutish, and short. Because that's how people experience it. What do they say today? Life's a bitch and then you die. If that's even in the back of our consciousness, in some form or fashion, that might be all that's necessary to create all kinds of illnesses or ailments or troubles or challenges because there's an unconscious acceptance of that belief. Even if we've never said it out loud, if our family has that belief and we've just absorbed it, we might not even realize that it's living way back there. Right? And so our job is that we have it within our power for it to take varying forms, and it is within our province to use it. What does that mean? It is within our province to use it, which means we have a right to use it. We have a right to look at anything in our lives and say, this is not in alignment with the life that I choose. This is not, I don't want this experience. I desire something else. We have a right to say, I desire joyous, happy experiences, my abundant life, physical health, physical well-being. We have a desire to do all. We have that. All of that is within our province. And I wonder why sometimes we can so easily fall into just acceptance or resignation to it, or think somehow spirit caused that. No, the universal law caused that because there was some acceptance or some thing that we took on way, way, way back when. So let me share with you my big revelation for those of you maybe don't know, we were on vacation for a month with to our cabin in Colorado, and I had New Hampshire, and I had a horrific fall the first week we were there. I mean, horrific. My ribs are still healing. I still have a little pain in my back, but thank God I didn't fracture anything in my back. My bruises are definitely going away. I don't have a big giant black eye, I'm definitely recovering. And and Karen and I did a lot of work around, and can we not accept our good? And do we feel like it's not okay for us to have this or for us to go away for a month? And what will people think? And what will they say? And I feel like something just dropped on me. What will they say? And what will be, and all of that. And, and I've struggled with those things in the past, but they didn't feel really alive. They just was like, okay, well, maybe same old, same old. And I happened to be having a conversation, a check-in in one of our team meetings. It was actually our ritual team meeting last week. I was having a check-in, and I was sharing all of this. And I heard myself say, it was so bad. I had this terrific, horrendous fall. I was really in pain. Plus, I had some teeth pain, which we won't even go into. I felt like my mouth was on fire. And yet I had these beautiful moments. Here we were in the cabin, and Karen was making it beautiful for us, and she was like going to town. She was not allowing me to feel guilty. And there were these exquisite moments in the midst of all this pain. And I heard myself say that, and I went, oh my God. And I shared this, and I'm going to share it with you. I have, in my life, in the past, I have shared about my life that often it feels like it's the best of times and the worst of times at the same time. And actually I started with that realization many years ago when I began to really understand that it really is all about perspective, and yet it's not about denial. And I can remember realizing that I can tell the story of my life, the fairy tale story of my life, traveling to Europe and the country club and and the beautiful crystal and china and the beautifully set table that we always had, and all the wonderful experiences that I had in growing up, and freedom and these kinds of things. I can tell that story, and then I can also tell the story of the alcoholism and the abuse and the rage and the neglect and the other side of that coin, and the reason why I ran away at 15, and so both of those stories are simultaneously true. And I learned that it depended on which one I was going to focus on. That was going to be the one that was going to play out. But it was the seed. It was the best of times and the worst of times at the same time. Actually, I remember 10 or 15 years ago, somebody saying to me, Petra, you have to write your life story. For God's sakes, write your life story. And I said, yeah, maybe someday I will. And I will title it, It Was the Best of Times and the Worst of Times. And there's a part of me way back here that still believes that. And so I got to say to Karen, oh my God, being in this cabin must be so good that I had to have this horrendous fall to have the worst of times in the middle of the best of times. Do you see, that's not anybody else's belief, that's mine, personal, way back here. And you can see that it's very fresh and new and very real for me. And that is what has been playing out, not because I imagined myself falling, not because I thought I didn't deserve my good. But do you see, Spirit didn't say, oh, you need to have this fall so you could learn this lesson. The universal law outpictured my consciousness. So this is the work. This is the work that we get to do. This is, right? No shame, no blame. But I have to take responsibility and look at that and go, oh my gosh. So now what's my will? My will, the job of my will is to direct anytime anything comes up that even remotely has the sense that it's coming out of that old false belief, is to say no. No, the universe fully supports me. I think, Dennis, you said that. The universe fully supports me. It's only the best. I don't need to have the worst. I don't need to continue to outpicture that belief. Sorry, I'm so But this is how you also know this kind of emotional response is how you know you're down at one of those really, really, really deeply rooted beliefs. And I think sometimes it's easy for us to pick up on like universal, oh, I must not deserve it, or I must not be able to accept my good. And sure, there's work to be done around all of that. I had to do all that work. I did not know until last week that this belief was lodged that deeply and that it was manifesting. And it manifested physically in my body as a horrific fall and outrageous pain in my teeth. And so when we say that it's in my province to say, I don't need to have that. Do you see? Spirit didn't want me to have that experience so I could learn the lesson. It's my province to learn the lesson from the fact that the universal law simply was outpicturing my causal consciousness. And to be able to do that without blame or shame. There's nothing wrong with me. We all have that kind of garbage somewhere back there, which is why we haven't turned pink and transcended yet. So this is what all of this is about. And so what I want to do is work with that belief, and I want to replace it with something else, because the law just works. It's going to keep manufacturing experiences that are outpicturing that causal belief until I have planted a new one. Do you see? It's not my job to change the outcome, to manipulate the pieces of it. The end result I want is a life that allows me to experience the best without having any vestiges of there also having to be the worst at the same time. What craziness. So that has been playing back there for a really long time. Anyway, that is my personal example that it is in our province to decide and choose anything we want. I wanted a cabin in the woods. Karen and I wanted a cabin in the woods. And so the universe wasn't trying to teach me any lessons around that. It simply was out picturing my false belief that I didn't even know existed. It was so unconscious. And our job is to imagine the end result and to direct with the will. And then I love this last statement, the imagination is creative, the will is directive. So it's the imagination that creates the image, and I use the word image lightly. You don't necessarily have to see it. Some of us aren't visual, some of us are audio, some of us are kinesthetic, but the imagination is the way in which we make the outcome real. We imagine that end result as real, and then the will is directive. We stay focused on it. We stay focused on it. We stay focused on it. We stay focused on it, regardless of whatever else might be playing out, which is just still the old stuff playing out until the new one is lodged, until that new imagined outcome, we believe it as true. Ryan, I see your hand that somebody must have something to share.
Yeah, well, a lot of love and support your way, Petra, for your experience. I think that people really resonated with what you had to say. And I think this is an important question for you on this and for everybody who's listening. This one says, we all know it's important to forgive. I heard of imagining tossing a stone into a pond. Do you know of any other tools or actions to help us? And I really think it's upon the discovery of that inner belief that we have. What tools can we use to really unravel it and move forward from it?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question, and that it's coupled with forgiveness. I'm not a big fan of the word forgiveness. I think forgiveness, anyway, that's a whole nother story. We'll talk about it another time. Not a big fan of the word forgiveness. The word I like is acceptance. So for me, there is an acceptance that belief has been running. And we have to feel our feelings around that. So when we have things that are within or without that we feel like we need to forgive, right, we get to feel the feelings, the sadness or the anger or the disappointment. And then we get to accept this is what has been. Right? This is what has been. And let it be that. We can't go back and change it. We can't wish it different. I don't know how many countless times I've played out in my mind, if only it had been different. Well, what if it had happened this way? Why couldn't it have done that way? Right? It didn't happen that way. It happened the way it happened. It is what it is. The belief got lodged and it's been playing out for decades. And so for me, the place to start is to simply accept, not, why did you have it? Why did you let that thing happen? How could you possibly believe that? What is the matter with you? What is wrong with you? Aren't you a spiritual being? Don't you know any better? Blah, 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 blah. Or we can, of course, we can direct that out to somebody else. How could they have done that? Why did that happen? Why should that have happened? Why did it happen to me? Blah. So the first tool is acceptance of what was, not resignation that's what has to be. Those are two very, 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 very different things. Very different. So I don't usually strive for forgiveness. I strive for acceptance. And when I mean acceptance, I mean there's absolutely no emotional content in it anymore. I felt all the feelings there are to feel. Obviously, this one I haven't yet. I felt all the feelings there are to feel around it. And I let it be, right? The tree was struck by lightning and half of it died. Yeah, and I'm sad about it, and I wish it hadn't happened, but the tree was struck by lightning and half of it died. Oh, look, so half of it's still growing. Wow, it's really interesting looking now. Do you see? It is what it is. It was what it was, and it is what it is. The question is always, well, now what? That's our will. Now what? Where are we going with this? Now what? How do I imagine it different? Creative, imagination, imagining it different, directing the law to now create a life that is the best of times. Period. The best of times. Period. So that's what I'm working on. The best of times. Period. No, there's no more to that sentence. It is the best of times. Period. So thanks for joining me this morning, and we're going to continue on the conversation about physical perfection and wherever it leads us. And don't ever hesitate to, make comments. You can always email me or chat with me, and love to see you again next week or wherever we see you, Sunday, Wednesday, wherever we see you online. It is so great to spend a Sunday morning with you. So focus on your will. How are you using it? Direct it to what you want. Not only do you deserve it, but the truth is you get to do it. And that's what you're here for, to create a beautiful life that is meaningful to you. Blessings. Bye for now.